Surrender to God is a common theme in all religious traditions as a means to transcend the individual's self. Sri Ramana accepted that surrender is as effective as self-enquiry. He stressed that true surrender transcended worshipping God in a subject-object relationship. Surrender can be successfully accomplished only when we think we are not separate from God. To achieve this goal, Sri Ramana recommended two distinct practices. One, holding on to the I thought until the one who imagines that he is separate from God disappears. Two, completely surrendering all responsibility for one's life to God or the self. For such self surrender to be effective, one must have no will or desire of one's own, and one must be completely free of the idea that there is an individual person who is capable of acting independently of God. To his devotees who practice devotion and worship towards God, he pointed out that any relationship with God was an illusory one since God alone exists. He said that true devotion is to remain as one really is, in the state of being in which all ideas about relationships with God have ceased to exist. In following these practices, there should be constant awareness that there is no individual I who acts or desires. There should be awareness that only the self exists and there is nothing apart from the self that is capable of acting independently of it. Sri Ramana himself admitted that spontaneous and complete surrender of the I by this method was an impossible goal for many people. So he sometimes advised his followers to undertake preliminary exercises which would cultivate their devotion and control their minds. Most of these practices involve thinking or meditating on God or the Guru either by constantly repeating his name or by visualizing his form. He told his devotees that if this was done regularly with love and devotion, then the mind would become effortlessly absorbed in the object of meditation. Once this has been achieved, complete surrender becomes much easier. The constant awareness of God prevents the mind from identifying with other objects and enhances the conviction that God alone exists. It also produces a flow of power or grace from the self, which weakens the hold of the I thought and destroys the vasanas which perpetuate and reinforce the existence of the I. As this happens, final realization is brought about by the power of the self. This final destruction of the I takes place only if self-surrender has been completely motiveless. If it's done with a desire for grace or self-realization, it can never be more than partial surrender. It would be like a business transaction in which the I thought makes an effort in the expectation of receiving a reward. Surrender appears easy because people imagine that once they say with their lips, I surrender, and put their burdens on their Lord, they can be free and do what they like. But the fact is that you can have no likes or dislikes after your surrender. You will be non-existent and Lord's will be all there is. The death of the ego in this way brings about jnana or liberation.